For 3 days straight, the Zionist occupation army has launched aggression in Palestinian territories, including Gaza and the West Bank, in response to Al-Aqsa flood operation by Palestinian resistance factions on October the 7th. The toll is grim: over 700 martyrs and 3,627 wounded on the Palestinian side, and over 900 deaths and 2,500 injured on the Zionist one, with numbers expected to rise. Clashes continue, with Palestinian factions firing rockets in retaliation. International condemnation is growing. In another troubling update, the United Nations reports 123,000 displaced in Gaza since the escalation began, and over 1,000 people have sought refuge, with 73,000 finding shelter in schools due to fears of airstrikes. This is All 24 Special. Hello again and welcome to another episode in our All 24 News Special. And before we bring in our esteemed guest, let's put things into perspective in this report.
3 days have passed since a major attack rocked the Gaza Strip as the Al-Qassam brigades launched a surprise offensive against Zionist settlements and military bases. This move shattered the 16-year siege imposed by the Zionist occupation on 2 million Palestinians, turning what was the largest open-air prison on earth into a battleground.
We were at our homes. Then we got information saying we have to leave our houses immediately, to leave the Ramallah neighborhood because it's under attack. We took ourselves, children and grandchildren, and daughters-in-law, and we ran away. I can say that we became refugees. We don't have safety or security. What's this life? This is not a life.
In response, the occupation chose to unleash a relentless military operation within the Gaza Strip, unleashing a barrage of airstrikes and bombardments on residential buildings. The retaliation, described as one of the most brutal responses ever, targeted not only Palestinian fighters, but also innocent children and unarmed civilians. After 2 days of deploying heavy artillery, tanks and armored vehicles, the military leaders of the Zionist entity embarked on a path of mass destruction, wiping out entire families. They amassed a staggering 300,000 reservists in and around the Gaza territory, coupled with an uncountable number of rockets and bombings relentlessly hammering residential areas and vital infrastructure. Human rights groups, including Human Rights Watch, decried the occupation's actions as a clear preparation for potential war crimes. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed deep concern over the escalating situation in Gaza, highlighting its distressing impact.
I am deeply distressed by today's announcement that Israel will initiate a complete siege of the Gaza Strip, nothing allowed in, no electricity, food or fuel. The humanitarian situation in Gaza was extremely dire before these hostilities. Now it will only deteriorate exponentially. Medical equipment, food, fuel and other humanitarian supplies are desperately needed, along with access for humanitarian personnel.
As violence escalates on Palestinian soil, resistance fighters continue to make unprecedented gains on the ground. Meanwhile, the entire region finds itself teetering on the brink of instability, as many regional actors remain inactive in resolving this long-standing conflict.
All right, let's bring in our guest. Joining me live from Paris is Dr Abdor Tumi, political analyst and Maghreb studies expert at OSAM, Turkey, along with Mrs. Yasmin Snunu, a Palestinian academic, education and disability studies, also a Palestinian activist from Canada, as well as from Palestine, Haifa is Dr. Saleem Break, political science lecturer at Haifa University. Gentlemen, ma'am, thank you for agreeing to be with us. And let me kick it off with you, Dr. Abdor Tumi, regarding the latest update on casualties caused by this occupation strikes on Gaza, which include 900 deaths and 2,500 wounded. This death toll is considered historic and has shocked both the occupation and its institutions. What is your own analysis of this situation?
Good evening, sir, and warm good evening and good morning to your special guest. So actually we are in this situation that the operation of this is about, you remember in 2003 when the new cons in Washington launched their operation named Shock and Awe to invade Iraq then. So we can make this parallel of this about the shock and awe, but the Palestinians are not shocked, neither awed, because they have been in this time and situation for 7 decades. But for the young, in the last 2 decades, and if we bring this, or if you can look for a metaphor, sports metaphor, it's an endless playoffs competition between the colonial states, the army of the colonial states, and Hamas. So now, as far as for the casualties go, of course, it is painful and it is sad also, but
yes, it goes both ways, Dr. Abdor Tumi, but what I meant, the shock was rather on the Zionist side, because it seems that they haven't lost such a number before.
Exactly, and this, I'm going to come to that. And so, colonizations faces resistance. So now, which is historical and unprecedented, not but the shock, but also the awe, went to the other side. So, and now the other side has to deal with this for the rest of the time being in the occupied territories. Because, again, we entered a new phase of to bring just a simple equation, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and these new parameters and its shift, and that will be shaping the entire dynamic of this conflict, locally and regionally.
Absolutely. And let me include Dr. I forgot the name, sorry, Saleem Break. In the aftermath of the Al-Aqsa flood operation, Dr. Saleem Break, the Palestinian resistance has demonstrated remarkable resilience despite a significant number of martyrs on the Palestinian side. How do you assess the implications of the resilience in the face of the well-armed Zionist enemy, backed by advanced weapons and Western support, that is?
Good evening for you all. Okay, I agree with you. It's really very surprising. It's really a strategic surprise for Israel. Nobody could even think about such an attack. First of all, it's very complicated. I am sure that they had a lot of time to train. They have a very good intelligence on the ground. Of course, we see that Israel was really shocked. Till now, more than 900 wounded. Just for an example, in the 2006 Lebanese war, the Israeli victims were only about 170. So you can just imagine how the Israeli people feel now. More than this, This is the first time in the history of Israel that the war is inside Israel, in the Israeli settlements, and not outside Israel. It's the first time that such thing can happen. And the third thing that till now, now we are speaking, still Hamas soldiers are inside Israel and fighting inside Israel. Now we don't know, maybe they have tunnels under the border that they can go and go back. We don't know, but because they declared that they changed their teams more than once. So all of this, and the Israeli army till now, they don't know what to do exactly. So they brought special troops to fight, but the civilians inside these settlements, most of them for a long time had no defense. Mm-hmm. So of course the implications will be, first of all, we see this and we are not surprised that Israel start to attack very severe and very hard inside Gaza. Later on, I think that they will have will enter Gaza, but not in this stage. And it may be cause also a regional war, not only in Gaza, also maybe with Lebanon. And we see the first, let's say, indicators that a war can be also with Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Absolutely. And here, let me include Yasmin Snunu. Here is the question, Yasmin Snunu. The announcement or the occupation's announcement of mobilizing 300,000 reserve soldiers is something significant, a significant move typically associated with regional or perhaps comprehensive internal war, just like Dr. Saleem Break was just saying. Do you believe the region is really heading towards such a scenario?
So at this point, it's still early to predict, what's going to happen, right? Everybody is assuming different scenarios, right? And so we can see from the Western media that the U.S. Already started, backing Israel, and they promised to send military aid, right? And Israel is already also talking about.
It seems that we're having a connection problem. Would you? I'll get back to you just when the connection is more stable. Yasmin Snunu, can you hear me, Yasmin?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. You were just cutting out. Yes, resume, please.
So yeah, it is not easy to predict what's going to happen, because right now Israel is trying, to reclaim the areas, right, that Hamas got or attacked, and but it is important to understand that the whole thing, connecting to my family and friends back in Gaza, the events took Israel by surprise, right? And but also it is important to know that this is not a war between Hamas and Israel. This is not about Hamas. This is about the Palestinian people, the Palestinian cause. This is about more than 75 years of ethnically cleansed, Palestine, and ongoing operations of ethnic cleansing of Palestine. This is about Palestinians who are trying.
All right, let's share with you the updates until we fix the connection problem with Yasmin Snunu. In response to repeated Israeli attacks on Gaza, Al-Qassam and Al-Quds brigades launched new wave of strikes targeting occupied areas. The commander of Al-Qassam stated that they hit various locations held by Israeli forces and settlers in retaliation for the attacks on Gaza. Resistance groups warned that they would take action against Israeli detainees if the sporadic shelling on Gaza civilians persists. Back to you, Dr. Abdor Tumi. What should the international community take as stronger action against the Zionist occupation in response to the targeting of civilian infrastructure? Isn't this a disproportionate, let's say, response? And doesn't it violate international humanitarian law?
Actually, the quick answer is no. I mean, that the hypocrite international community is not going to answer and to react. I mean, to the contrary. I mean, they have been blaming Hamas, and as Dr. Yasmin put it, I mean, the Zionist state, I mean, did excel to some extent to frame the narrative of these 75 years of conflict and of injustice and occupation to the fight between the colonial state and Hamas. But now, no, it's not just, I mean, of course, for us who have been following this for decades, it's obvious it's about the issue, it's about Palestinians' rights. Now, back to the international community, and when we speak about the international community, I mean, there is the US and the Europeans, I mean, the so-called, the West as it is portrayed in the international system. But what we are, this double standard position, which did enhance all these policies and arrogance, and also I don't care attitude of the colonial states leaders, just which is allowing them to use or practice such as like a scorched earth policy, like what we are having and what we are seeing today in Gaza and before that. So the international community is, inexistent because it is biased. Now, as far as when we speak about the international community, we go to the UN. We all know the role of the UN, which is irrelevant, and I said that many times on this respectful network, that the UN is facing the future of the League of Nations.
Good.
So,
since Yasmin is back with us, I would like to get back to her, maybe to hark back to what you have just stated, Dr. Abdor Tumi. Yasmin Snunu, what can be done to protect the rights and safety of Gazans in the conflict zones? And how can international humanitarian law be perhaps reinforced to prevent harm to non-combatants here?
So this is as simple as this. Israel hasn't been abiding by the international law, and that's what the Palestinians have been saying all along for so many years. But it looks like the core countries of Europe and the US and Canada have been also abstracting the achievement of or applying the international law equally, right? And so we can see that many times the UN came up with reports on the crimes that are committed against the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, but
And as just we are discussing, we can see live bombardments continuing to clash and pound Gaza as we speak in the moment. Yes, Yasmin, since you're back?
Whenever there is a talk about, okay, what are the punitive procedures that the UN could take, right, against Israel, there is the veto coming up, right? So every time there is something about that, about punishing Israel at the UN, the US would hold up the veto and cancel any attempts that would hold Israel accountable. And so it is important to know that Palestine has been a member of the international court, criminal court, right? Yeah. And we have been applying, or we have been putting different requests, right? But Israel has been again trying to not to accept any membership or to at least come into the conversation and be a
So they
member.
could just be the main dominant, in the decision making and drafting the laws. Of course, let me just include Dr. Saleem Break. As the situation escalates, Dr. Saleem, towards a potential regional war, let's harken back a little to history. Nearly 50 years ago, the Zionist entity was caught off guard by the Yom Kippur War. Can we draw parallels between the event and the recent dramatic Palestinian operation here? Does this reveal a surprising vulnerability in the security system of the Zionist side?
Yes, of course. First of all, the attack, the Egyptian and Syrian attack on Israel was on the October the 6th, and now the Hamas attack was on October the 7th. This is the first point, and it was on Shabbat, the Saturday. But there is a lot of things that we can see it's more or less the same. First of all, the conception that Israel adapted at that time. Golda Meir thought that there is no Palestinians, and the Egyptians can come to make peace for peace, and not. And even Moshe Dayan said that he prefers Sharm el-Sheikh without peace than peace without Sharm el-Sheikh. And they thought that the Arabs can do nothing against Israel. Now it's the same. The Netanyahu government thought that the Palestinians are over. He can resolve the Palestinian problem as he likes with the Americans and with the Saudians, and just to remove the Palestinian issue from the table. And that's what the point. Also, this is the first time that in Israel there is a racist and the fascist parties are in the government, and they started to try to change the status quo in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So that was the surprise now. But this surprise is much more effective than the 73 war, because first of all, the injured and the killed Israelis, and now we're talking about 130 hostages. So it's very hard for the Israelis. The second thing, that nobody thought that Hamas can create such a big event with this weapons, with this sophisticated intelligence, with this operation, very, very addicted and let's say brave. So Israel is now in shock. Sometimes you think that you have airplanes, you have intelligence, you have a big military forces, and you can do whatever you think. And suddenly you find that your weak neighbor can attack you and can even cause you a lot of damage. But there will be, of course, a response.
Yes, and speaking of the response, Dr. Saleem Break, I invite you to follow with me this report that sheds light on the comprehensive aggression against the Palestinian people as the Minister of Defense, Zionist Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, has chosen to impose a total blockade on the Gaza Strip. Let's follow and we get back to discussion.
In Gaza, tensions are escalating as the Zionist violence takes a harsher turn. The Zionist Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has ordered a total lockdown on the Strip, adding to the ongoing occupation's assault on Gaza. This lockdown means that roads in and out of Gaza are blocked, access to essential supplies like food and fuel is restricted, and electricity has been cut off. To make matters worse, the Zionist Energy Minister has announced an immediate cutoff of water supplies to Gaza. These measures are part of an economic war strategy aimed at pressuring the resistance and further endangering the already besieged Gaza Strip, which has endured a 17-year-long blockade. The consequences of these decisions are dire, with the potential to trigger a large-scale humanitarian disaster in Gaza This densely populated area, home to 2.3 million people, faces a bleak future.
وكون أن المعابر مغلقة.
Since the crossings are closed, communication was made with our embassy in Cairo and the brothers of the Egyptian leadership to bring aid through Rafah crossing. And communication was made with the World Health Organization and UNICEF to deliver medical aid through them as well.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed deep concern over these developments, highlighting that the already dire situation in Gaza is set to deteriorate further.
I am deeply distressed by today's announcement that Israel will initiate a complete siege of the Gaza Strip, nothing allowed in, no electricity, food, or fuel. The humanitarian situation in Gaza was extremely dire before these hostilities. Now it will only deteriorate exponentially.
Throughout the aggression on the Strip, the occupation's airstrikes have targeted critical infrastructure, services, and vital facilities. In the past 3 days alone, Zionist warplanes have dropped tons of explosives on Gaza and its surroundings. These 3 days have witnessed a series of heinous crimes against Palestinians, including the indiscriminate targeting of civilians, women, and children.
All right, let me get back to you, Dr. Saleem Break, since I catch you out there, just to finish your thought. And in addition to the strict blockade imposed by the occupation on Gaza, depriving its residents of electricity, food and fuel, all these actually raise many concerns about a potential invasion. Do you think this blockade is a prelude, some kind of an introduction to an invasion, given the conditions it creates?
Maybe, but I want to go back to the 73 war and the war today. In both cases, the United States had negative role. The United States could, that time, avoid this war, and now it's the same. Means that somebody or some forces push the Arabs always to the corner, and what happens. Now, first of all, we are talking about a humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, and I think that it can't continue like this. But the problem now that the Palestinians are more or less alone. You see, so maybe some countries like Jordan and Qatar and maybe Algeria support the Palestinians, and that's all. So United States and the Europeans gave green line to Israel. Just do whatever you like. So and Israel now used this, let's say, window, so-called, to attack the Palestinians and just to make them remember, as Gallant said, to decades this catastrophe, and to be afraid always, just to not to attack Israel anymore. Means that more violent, and nothing to do with the Palestinians and the Palestinian rights. Nobody talk about Palestinian independent state. Nobody talk about finishing the closure in Gaza. Nothing like this. It's also, let's say, part of a big plan in the Middle East that Biden talked about and he wanted to do, and now maybe he has now to freeze it for some time. But let's say the map of the Middle East from the American and the European eyes doesn't include a Palestinian state, and this is the core of the problem now.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Abdor Tumi, just to stay in the same point, the option of imposing a complete and strict blockade in the hope perhaps of inciting a popular uprising against the resistance in Gaza. This technique has been used for so many years, I mean, within the Zionist power, with limited success, however. Has the occupation failed to learn from past experiences, especially considering that such measures often strengthen the people's will and solidarity, I mean, with the resistance?
That is true, and this is, again, it's the arrogance of the any occupier. And we, as Algerians, I mean, not our generation, but our fathers and grandfathers did go through the same policy and the same attitude of harsh occupation and acculturation process and so on, and playing with this harsh economic measures on the people. But here it's not a normal case. I mean, it's a just cause that the Palestinian people are fighting for their rights. And yes, I mean, unfortunately, the Palestinian cause was sided for many years, if not 2 or 3 decades, I mean, since the Oslo Accord. But now the shock of October 7, 2023 did bring back the Palestinian cause, not only for the Palestinian people who never gave up on their rights and they always believed in their just cause, but also to the region and also to the entire world. And today, the entire world is hearing about the Palestinians and their just cause. So, to starve the Palestinians or for instance, the people in Gaza, frankly, it makes unfortunately, to laugh ironically, because as if the Gazawis were living in the Suez Canton. So, they have been going through this for decades. So this is, I would argue, to the contrary, will enhance their resistance and their resignation and their courage. And also, they will put a pressure on the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah to act, courageously and take bold decisions vis-à-vis the so-called negotiation process with the colonial states that, the leaders or its leaders, they never believed in such a thing. And today we are facing all their arrogance and ignorance of the legitimate and the right of the Palestinians.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Yasmin Snunu, could you please tell us specifically how exactly can perhaps this conflict involving the state of the Zionist state impact the dynamics of a society already undergoing a severe political crisis, and what factors perhaps can contribute to the timing and consequences of such conflict in the Zionist entity? Can you hear me, Yasmin?
Yes. Yes. Again, I'm going to go back and assert what others talk about, Dr. Saleem. And so we need to talk about, the root causes of what is happening, right? We cannot just talk about the event that happened October 7th without really giving a context, right? And we need always to, and what happened is actually a reminder to the Zionist Israeli colonizer that this is what's going to keep happening, okay? When there is a colonizer, the people will resist. Many times Israel tried to tighten the siege, or when they imposed the siege in 2006, they keep the annexation and the confiscation of the land and building over 200 ghetto units as an apartheid regime in the West Bank. The settlers attacking the Palestinians on daily basis, killing and destroying the infrastructure. All this did not deter the Palestinians from resisting, right? So we have to always talk on October 7th. That's the first thing. The second thing is, you mentioned the word conflict, and let me comment here, because we need also to talk about language, right? It's never a conflict. Israel is, a Jewish state built on the killing of the indigenous Palestinians. It is a colonization. It is a colonist Jewish state, an apartheid regime that is unequivocally supported by the US and Europe, right? And it's never a war. Also, Israel has one of the most powerful armies with mass weapons of destruction. And so, while the Palestinians have no viable state with no army, aggression, attack, assault, genocide, murder, and actually Holocaust, a form of Holocaust against the Palestinians. That is what is happening right now in Gaza. And we need, to be careful about the terms we use, because the terms are they should more accurately reflect, right, the situation and the lived experiences. Now I'm gonna go back to your question. Can you?
Well, it seems that we're having a connection problem. You were making a very nice point right there. And I would like to invite Dr. Abdor Tumi to comment on what you were saying and perhaps add to what you were saying about this situation being exacerbating even for the Zionist entity. And we see the Palestinian resistance flood operation, Al-Aqsa flood operation, sent shockwaves through the Zionist entity like never before. How do you foresee the success affecting the leadership of the occupation, particularly in dealing with security challenges, that could actually undermine the whole entity? Dr. Abdor Tumi?
Actually, it is already a shock and awe inside the in the occupied territories and within their leaders, who actually never thought they would face such an operation and an attack and a battle that is still going on. And because, again, first of all, because of their arrogance, and this is, again, the colonizer mentality vis-a-vis the occupier, and also the leaders of this the colonial state. I mean, they believe that their carte blanche they got from the West, and notably from the Americans, will never be questioned. I mean, even though all the elements and the factors of such an attitude are there. But again, they don't want to listen. Why? Because they were not facing a serious resistance. Nonetheless, the Palestinians, and again, I repeat it and repeat it again, the Palestinians have been resisting for 75 years. But for some reasons, and actually we all know why, because unfortunately, after the Oslo Accord 3 decades ago, the Palestinian cause has been anything but national. It's been using as a white card in the hands of some neighboring countries who were using or capitalizing on the Palestinian cause. Mm-hmm. But this time, and what Hamas did is, I would say, a geopolitical big bang in the region. That we're still too early to predict this, but we will see this in the near future, because nowadays everybody is talking, including the leader of the colonial state, Netanyahu, said we will be having a new Middle East. So we will see that, because Hamas did change the entire dynamic and the parameters of this conflict between the Palestinians and the Zionists and their colonial states.
Understood.
So,
And Dr. Saleem Break, let me please include him so as to have a comprehensive overview about Al-Qassam Brigade's statement regarding the execution of a Zionist prisoner in response to any targeting of the Palestinian people. This seems to be some kind of psychological warfare. Do you agree, Dr. Saleem Break? How do you interpret this statement, particularly in the context of the enemy's low morale?
Okay, as I said, that now Hamas declared that they have at least 130 hostages, but also there are Palestinian prisoners in the Israeli prisons that Israel didn't agree at all to deal with the Palestinians on their future. Some of them are women also and children. So now there is a big dilemma. The first dilemma is that some of these hostages are children and women, for example, and I think that even according to the Islam, it's not accepted to take them as prisoners. So there's some problem with this. Now also let's say the public relations, if we can say this, of the Palestinians can be damaged by such thing. The second point that now the Israeli dilemma: can Israel attack freely, like there's no prisoners, Israeli prisoners in the Palestinian hands, or they have to take this let's say this point in their calculations, and it means that they have to change the way that they attack. So now I heard the leader of Hamas and the spokesman of Hamas about this point, and I think that it's really a way to minimize the Israeli attacks on the civilians in Gaza.
So you think it's not a very effective pressure card, perhaps, on the enemy? What about you, Dr. Yasmin Snounu? Do you agree the spokesman for Al-Qassam held the enemy responsible for their decisions and stated that the ball is in their court? If they choose to attack or continue to attack Gaza, they have enemies that they are ready to execute, that is. What is the significance of this statement, especially in the current situation? Can you hear me, Yasmin? Well, it seems that Yasmin is having a problem with the sound. We're going to get back to her and ask her the question. Meanwhile, Dr. Abdor Tumi, how do you see this?
I'm sorry, Kim, would you repeat the question, please?
Yes, I was talking about the current situation, the hostage situation with the Al-Qassam brigades there. They held enemies responsible for their decision. If they chose perhaps to attack Gaza, they said that the court or the ball is in their court. If they choose perhaps to attack or continue to attack and bombard Gaza, they have prisoners that they could execute if they continue to do so. What is the significance of this statement, according to you, especially in the current situation?
Surely, it's a part of the communication and the psychological war that is going on, I mean, between the two parties, but also it's actually, a good card in the hands of the resistance to show or put in front. This will be in the future if there will be any discussions that will lead to a negotiation of a truce like the previous.
So do you think it's an effective pressure card that the Qassam brigades or the resistance in general can actually apply against the enemies?
Actually, this time it's a good one because, I mean, they have the numbers of prisoners, and also it's a huge pressure on the leaders of the colonial states because, I mean, especially the Netanyahu, who did, present himself to his voters and his fellow citizens to be the strong man and to bring, to secure the colonial states and be the strong man. But the operation of October 7 did demystify his state and himself. And again, because knowing that he was just, 2 days ago facing a strong opposition inside, in the Israeli society.
Perfect.
And also now he is weak and he will come, through this crisis weaker. But he's still using the card as strong man as he can be the one who can bring the Israelis to the Israelis security. And this is why he called for a new government, like, let's say, a war government, because his cabinet right now is very weak because of the racist and messianic.
Excellent point clear, Dr. Abdor Tumi. Since Dr. Yasmin Snulu is back, I'd like to get back to you. Did you hear my question, or should I repeat it for you, Dr. Yasmin?
Yes, I heard your question, but we got disconnected when I was trying to address the second part of the question I was talking about. So let's go back a little bit to talk about, whether the Israeli leadership, right? And I think in all cases, whatever the situation is, the Israeli leadership has been always one that is extreme, okay? And so again, the problem is not, we always have right now, look at it's a right-wing, leadership that has been pushing for actually isolating the Palestinians and trying, to have agreements with the other Arab countries, and so it's always and pushing also towards tightening the siege on Gaza, killing more Palestinians, and all these apartheid practices in the West Bank. Okay, and so we do not expect, to see any change in the leadership because we are talking about colonization here. Okay, we are talking about an Israeli colonizer that is determined to subdue any resistance, right? And the plan was clear from the beginning, from the establishment, the moment the state of Israel was established in 1948, right? This is our homeland. We need to be in this land. How about Arabs? Arabs live in tents, and we just need to kill them all. Right? And so we always see this manifested in all the practices of the Israeli army and the Israeli apartheid regime. Okay, so we don't expect any change in as a matter of fact, because of the current fascist Israeli leadership, what happened on October 7th happened. Okay, and so we need to always focus on why such a reaction, why such a resistance is there. Okay, again, the root causes.
And why every resistance is termed as terrorism as well, Dr. Yasmin. And that's why I would like to include Dr. Saleem Break to tell me, why is it so challenging to critique the actions of the Zionist entity? And how does this lead to oversimplifications of Palestinian resistance as terrorism in today's discourse?
I would like, first of all, just to remark about what Yasmin said before. I don't think that Israel or the Prime Minister of Israel is isolating the Palestinians. I think the Arabs are isolating the Palestinians. All these countries like the Emirates and now Saudi Arabia and Morocco and all these countries, in fact, they lift the Palestinian issue, and in fact, they support Israel against the Palestinians. Let's put it in the table. So this encourages Israel to be more and more, let's say, aggressive against the Palestinians, and we saw this in Jerusalem, in Al-Aqsa Mosque, and in the West Bank. Since the last 9 months. Now, what I think that first of all, in the coming days, the Palestinian situation in Gaza will be very hard. I think that a lot of attacks will be there. Europe and the United States will support Israel totally, but there is a big dilemma in Israel. Let's say what will happen after that. It means, okay, we killed people, we destroyed an extra, and what will be after that? Who will be the leader? Now in Israel they talk that they want to finish the Hamas leadership. Okay, who will be instead of Hamas? This is the first point. The second point is what is going on in the West Bank. Till now we don't know what's going on there. It's stable, and there is no attacks in the West Bank, and we don't know what will be with the Palestinian Authority. We see that they almost didn't react actually to these events, and this is an important point that we can we take in consideration. Not also we.
But how would you expect them to react, Dr. Saleem Break?
Israeli government.
I mean, what is expected from them, from the authority, Palestinian Authority? How do you expect them to react?
There's a big problem. I don't know what to do with this, but you know, the Palestinian Authority was built on the Oslo Accords. Now we have exactly 30 years and 1 month that after the signing of these agreements. Israel didn't respect any chapter of these agreements, and the opposite, the Oslo agreements put the Palestinians under the Israeli economic pressure, and this is very hard to the Palestinian people. We see this all the time. This from one hand. From the other hand, Israel pushing the Palestinian Authority to cooperate with Israel against the Palestinian people by the military cooperation. So this is a big question, because now
you actually casting serious accusations toward the Palestinian government. I would like to technically entitle you with the responsibility of what you are saying, because just recently the Palestinian government meeting in Ramallah, we had the Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh strongly criticizing the Zionist entity, condemning its policies of aggression and occupation against the Palestinian people. Additionally, he disclosed that President Mahmoud Abbas was actively leading global efforts to halt the aggression and issued a warning about the potential for an explosion in the entire Middle East region.
As the relentless Zionist occupation onslaught continues to launch a barrage of violent raids across Gaza Strip, targeting residential buildings and even civilians and service facilities, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh issued a stark warning about the explosive situation in the Middle East. He squarely blamed the Zionist government for its policy of aggression and the relentless killing of Palestinian people. Speaking at a Palestinian government meeting in Ramallah on Monday, Shtayyeh branded the Zionist entity as a state of aggression and occupation, asserting the Palestinian people's right to defend their rights. He didn't hold back in criticizing Western double standards when assessing recent developments in the occupied Palestinian territories.
We've been telling the world for a long time that the policy of the occupation will provoke an outbreak of the situation in the Palestinian territories, both in Gaza and in the Quds, or in the rest of the Palestinian areas. Israel is a state of aggression and occupation, and our people have the right to defend themselves, and we have made it clear to those who see only with one eye.
She also revealed that Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has initiated a regional and international effort, reaching out to world leaders in an attempt to halt the aggression against the Palestinian people.
The President is mobilizing for an international initiative through calls with world leaders to halt the Zionist aggression. The government is committed to ending the suffering of our people and will also ensure the provision of all necessary aid to Gaza Strip residents.
Meanwhile, after meeting with the Algerian Foreign Affairs Minister, the Palestinian Minister of Social Development, Ahmed Mjiljalani, grimly predicted that the Zionist aggression against Gaza and the West Bank would persist for weeks to come.
Without any doubt, the war is expected to last for weeks. Our people will persevere, and we are committed to meeting all their needs. Furthermore, we will ensure the necessary provisions for the resistance to stand firm against the aggressor.
The ongoing Zionist aggression led to a rising tide of tensions in the Middle East, prompting urgent appeals for international intervention. The situation remains tense as the conflict unfolds.
Back to you, Dr. Saleem Break. So we had here the official statements from the Palestinian Authority. What is your comment?
No, it's okay. I agree with all of this. In the diplomatic field, I'm sure the Palestinian Authority is doing a lot of efforts. But I didn't talk about this. I talk about what are the Israeli expectations. And this right-wing government, they think that the Palestinian Authority should be something like a local authority only to deal with the daily life.
So technically, you're saying that
yes,
the Zionist entity are practicing some kind of restrictions on the authority, and they do not have the, the liberty and freedom to exercise full authority, since the Palestinian state is not recognized as it is the effort, diplomatic effort that everybody is seeking.
Yes, I agree with this point of view.
Perfect. Okay, Dr. Abdor Tumi, what can you tell us about Prime Minister Netanyahu's call to President Biden regarding the occupation's intention to invade Gaza by land, which raised a lot of questions about the practicality and likelihood of such action, especially considering the occupation's previous unilateral withdrawal from Gaza in 2005?
Actually, I mean, this is, again, it's business as usual between the Israelis and the leaders in Washington. And this is not a surprise. And all Americans, actually the politicians, the two parties, I mean, Democrats and Republicans, agree on this. Nonetheless, I mean, they're facing a serious institutional crisis in the Congress. But when it comes to Israel, it's a sacred issue, and all the politicians and the media get together and show full support to the leaders of the colonial states. But I mean, this is not new, and nonetheless, I mean, even though the Americans are trying or did position themselves in that posture of a broker in the so-called peace process, but we didn't see, I mean, we have been seeing the process, but we never saw any progress. So this is not, again, it just showed how the Palestinians are alone, are left alone, and what they need now. I mean, again, what happened on that on Saturday, October 7, the Hamas did reshuffle the cards nationally and regionally, and this is why the Arab countries need to stand together and have same voice and be behind the Palestinians, or just declare who is who and who is with who. because, I mean, we are not speaking about the Arab League because, unfortunately, this league has been, I mean, it is an irrelevant one, and it's not doing anything but just causing more harm to the Palestinians, and which left the leaders of the colonial state to capitalize on this intra-division, firstly in...
Point clear, Dr. Abdor Tumi. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, and I would like to give a final brief word to Dr. Yasmin Snunu. Please, briefly, what can you tell us about the United States' substantial financial and military involvement in what is happening in Gaza?
So, we know very well that the U.S. has been always the strongest ally to Israel, right? I mean, we have...
Well, unfortunately, it seems that we're having technical problem. Can you hear me, Yasmin?
Yes,
yes, finish off, please.
Can you hear me? Okay, yes. So we have $2 billion in military aid annually, which is coming from the tax money of the U.S., and that is $10 million daily, right, from the tax money of the American people going to Israel. And so the U.S. has been always a strong ally to Israel, and we know that the American policy has never changed, right, towards the and Israel. But what is happening right now is we have more Americans who are being educated on the situation, although we still have the mainstream media brainwashing the Americans that the Palestinians, it's okay to kill the Palestinians, and we have to support, Israel.
Point clear. Thank you, Yasmin Snunu. We will have further discussion in other editions. Unfortunately, we're out of time. The end of our special coverage. Special thanks for my panel of guests and for you, dear viewers, for keeping it here on our channel. Till next time, take care.